Yo, we back with another one, man. The AM ship, we gonna call it. Hey, I don't know why this came to my mind, because I remember as a kid, my uncles and my dad and all them having these DVDs or going to the little bootleg DVD salesman and the little stands, and you find out they don't just got the little childhood movies and regular movies on the stand. They got a little shelf or a little box underneath their little cart or something. I got the exclusive, and they used to have the little dog videos, the fight, and all type of random shit. But I don't know why I thought of this because I remember that bright yellow cover of Bumfights 3, I think it was. So that shit came to my head, and then I some just made me see like what happened to Bling Bling and all them. So I just started looking people up and shit. So that's what brought me here.
Bum fights, to explain it to somebody now, feels so much more tame than it did like in 2010.
Why in the world would anybody buy this thing?
Bum fights was its own like wake up one day and think, what the fuck did we just do? And for those who think there haven't been consequences, it's like there have 20 years of them. Going back, wouldn't do that again. Some of my favorite artists ever are the ones that are always on some different shit. We have this body of work where you don't know what your entry to Indecline was. It could have been through graffiti, it could have been from our theatrical background. You can't really put your finger on like what it is we do because we haven't done the same thing for 20 plus years. Like we like getting involved in things that we're technically like have no business being involved in.
Brothers. Got a question for you guys. Where exactly is the line between exploitation and documentation? It's a question that I've pondered for quite some time as a journalist, yet haven't really reached a definitive answer on. Is it ethical to film somebody in an extremely vulnerable state if what you've captured delivers an important message about the historical realities of that moment? It seems to be a question that each prominent documentary filmmaker has a different answer to. I've generally followed the motto, shoot most things and then make the decision in post-production on whether or not to publish it to the world. But the first time I can recall actually withholding footage forever was back in 2018 when a teenager freely confessed to an accidental homicide in Louisiana. And then a year later in 2019 when I stumbled upon an illegal, full nude Down syndrome strip club in Alabama where
Bro, what the fuck?
and the stripper poles were installed in the beds of pickup trucks that were gathered in a circle, and the cash tips were going to the parents of the dancers. In an ideal world, I would.
That all needs to be investigated and shut down. Whatever he
Would have
talking
called
about.
the sheriff, but the sheriff was there drinking a
Who
beer.
even think
There's
about
also been
stuff
other
like
situations
the
where I
sheriff?
declined to
Who even
interview
think about
somebody
stuff
for
like that?
ethical reasons. Most recently, 2 weeks ago, actually about 3 weeks ago now, but I made contact with an escaped New Orleans jail inmate named Antoine Massey, who's since been captured. He
Oh
hit me
yeah, I
up on
remember he
Instagram
was on
about
the
doing an
news.
in-person interview about the conditions inside jail that made him want to escape, which I was very excited to conduct before learning that Antoine Massey was convicted of some crimes that aren't so cool. Cool crimes to me is like bank robbery, wire fraud, or petty cocaine possession, not aggravated domestic battery. Still, given the news value of the story, I was still down for a quick interview if I could
What's that,
establish
hitting on
early
women?
on that he was in jail for bad reasons. But then Mr. Massey asked me for a
Is that-
$500 Cash App deposit.
Shout out
which my
Channel
lawyer
5,
told me
man.
would be considered aiding and abetting a fugitive, so I had to pass. Anyways, some of my favorite documentary films and movies have been ones that did walk that line. I can remember the Harmony Korine movie called Gunmo that I saw in high school, which wasn't a documentary film, but it kind of felt like one. And it featured scenes of glue-huffing, animal-abusing kids in Ohio doing some crazy stuff. Though it was hard on the eyes, there was a deeper message about the spiritual
Hey, y'all hit
melancholy
the like
in
button
the
if y'all in here.
post-industrial rural Midwest around the turn of the millennium, which, if you can remember, if you were alive during Y2K, was an era marked
do
by
y'all
liberal
remember these
optimism
DVDs
and
as a kid?
celebration of technological advancement.
Or when y'all was younger, I
Despite
was a
being
kid.
called
Y'all
the
might was
worst
younger.
film of the year by the New York Times in 1999, who considered the film to be crass and exploitative, Korine defended Gunmo, explaining that he was merely acting as a passive voyeur in an existent reality, who happened to press record in a typical environment that's outside the confines of polite society. However, there have been other celebrated controversial documentary films where the director went beyond the role of a voyeur and actually imposed his will on the primary subject of the film to make a point. One of those was The Act of Killing, directed by Joshua Oppenheimer, released in 2012. The film, if you haven't seen it, follows a man named Anwar Congo, who was the leader of a US-backed anti-communist death squad that perpetrated the Indonesian mass killings of 1965, which killed up to 100,000 people. In the third act of the film, Oppenheimer helps to organize a theatrical reenactment of these exact
This look
massacres,
like one of those
wherein
Hollywood
Congo must play
movies.
a victim of the massacres in one of the scenes, which caused him to undergo a panic attack and temporarily come to terms with the harm that he'd caused.
This
Though
show look
ultimately,
like one of
Congo
those
did
Bollywood
snap
movies.
back into denialism and bravado. Now, in facilitating this transformative theatrical moment, Oppenheimer stepped beyond the role of a passive documentarian to create plot structure, and he was really heralded as a genius for doing that. And I kind of agree. I think it's an amazing film. But today, we're not going to be talking about Harmony Korine or Joshua Oppenheimer. We're going to be talking about a film that received really only controversy without much props outside the skateboard and graffiti worlds, despite being the highest sold underground DVD of 2002. Selling over 250,000 copies. That film was called Bumfights Volume 1, A Cause for Concern. It was created and distributed by 4 then high school students from
everybody hit the like button. Do me a favor, hit the like button.
Took inspiration from the wild, wild internet of the late 90s and early 2000s in the wake of Gummo and Jackass success, when America's countercultural youth was in a sociopathic arms race to make craziest content possible. Bumfights, as the name implies, featured videos of bums fighting, and mostly revolved around the life and times of Donnie and Rufus, 2 homeless individuals known to La Mesa, California high school kids as the local stunt bums, far before the camera started rolling. For reference, Donnie and Rufus were hardened local alcoholics who'd become micro-celebrities in the area for a proposition they'd often make to teenagers. Give us beer.
I think they ended up any stunt later on down the line.
Whether it be running into milk crates, getting inside of shopping carts and running into walls, pulling teeth out, and beyond. So a group of kids decided to film them and pay extra beer and extra money for crazier and crazier stunts. Those youths were Ryan McPherson, Daniel Tanner, Zachary Bubeck, and Michael Slyman, who put together Bumfights to show other kids in the area, adding a cause for concern to the end of the title to emphasize the fact that they believed that what they put together was a mirror of street life that reflected the uncomfortable realities and how far some people will go to feed their addictions. The problem was, Ryan and the guys were the ones paying for it. Needless to say, Bumfights traveled from La Mesa across the entire planet at a rate in which the videographers couldn't imagine, resulting in widespread condemnation for obvious reasons, lawsuits, and even the arrest of the directors for illegal prize fighting. In far over their heads, Ryan, then not even 20 years old, sold the rights away for all future sequels and stepped away from Bumfights for good, to focus on an independent artistic venture called Indecline, which today has evolved into one of the most radical and, you guessed it, controversial art collectives in the country. They've installed life-sized, butt-naked nude statues of Trump across the country, painted giant anti-war murals on military training grounds, hijacked dozens upon dozens of billboards, usually with anti-consumerist messaging, and even installed the largest piece of illegal graffiti in U.S. history out in the Mojave Desert. So essentially, they're still inciting chaos, but in a controlled, direct manner, not involving the homeless. Anyways, these guys have had quite the storied career from teenage infamy to an adulthood and radical art activism. And what you're about to watch or hear, if you're on Spotify or Apple Music, is one of their first candid interviews ever, which we filmed in a warehouse.
Nigga went on Dr. Phil looking like him.
Viewer, my name is Andrew Callaghan, and this is our new long-form show called 5Cast, which is kind of a podcast type of deal. It's a bit of a departure from our typical punchy style of infield content. For me, this new show has been a bit of a breath of fresh air, and I hope you guys like it. Anyways, here it is, an exclusive interview with 2 of Indecline's founding members who, for their own safety, would like to remain anonymous. All right, we straight? All right, action. We're currently here in Las Vegas. It's about 98 degrees. Is this a typical day in town?
Yeah, I'd say this is probably pretty
98
typical,
degrees.
you know, just uncomfortable enough to be just absolutely unbearable and inspiring.
So before we get into the arts career and trajectory, let's talk about Las Vegas proper itself. You guys are de facto artistic representatives of Clark County and Las Vegas. What is one thing you want people to understand about this place that they might not be aware of?
Well, it's like a big, like suburban kind of sprawl with like a really grimy center. Yeah, kind of grimy, chewy center that they're doing a lot to try to rehabilitate, but it kind of gives you a place to go get into trouble, you know, and then a reason to like have that angst at the world. If you grew up here too, like this isn't like growing up in a lot of parts of the country. Like summers, I guess, when you're out of school, you're dealing with 116-degree heat. You're not going to a beach, you're not skateboarding, you're not like, you have to get creative. And there's, you know, no matter what you do, no matter how much water you drink, like the heat does something to you. Coming here and meeting all the different people that like grew up here properly, like you definitely see that little edge, you know, to the people that have put in enough summers in Las Vegas. Like they're a special kind of activated for sure.
So when you guys first moved here, was there a sprawling suburbia like Henderson and stuff, or was it more compact?
Yeah. That was all there. It's just always been an expanding. The best way to describe it was every time I would fly to Las Vegas from anywhere, it seemed like you would reach it sooner. Like there was this one point in time, you get coming at night and it would just be this little illuminated dot in the middle of nothing. And then you just kept hitting it sooner and sooner. And it would just be all the, the Summerlins and the Green Valleys and all that. So they've just expanded and expanded and, Now most people say they live in Las Vegas, but they're 50 minutes from the Strip.
But do you think it's the consumerist nature of the
They
city
gotta
itself
have
that's made it a ripe target for the kind of work y'all do?
Yeah, well, you got to think it's a city built by the mob. So they came out here, and then when the giant corporations took it over, they sanitized it, but it's more or less the same ethos. Like, it's one of the few cities in the world where people jump off those casinos all the time.
A person is dead after jumping from the South Point parking garage.
That is not like an urban myth either. You talk to anybody who works in them, you know, and it's like, we had one time a play that we eventually made. The whole genesis of the idea is that someone was sitting in the office and they had a dude standing on top of a casino ready to jump, you know? And it was just like the standoff. This is like capitalism on steroids out here. They just produce an amount of wealth that's hard to imagine, like Tesla wealth, and it's all off this illusion that consumption can fix everything, that you're always one, you know, hot streak away from this lifestyle that's unsustainable, you know, the comped rooms, all the big wins, you know, it's like the hooker girlfriend on the weekend. It's like, it really is America at its best and worst, however you want to take that.
And one of my first recollections of Las Vegas was the tunnels. It was within the first week of ever coming here as an adult. I went down there on a tour with Aware, and he was painting, and I experienced that and experienced what it was like to stand however many, you know, meters underneath, you know, multi-billion-dollar casinos as these people are shooting drugs and, you know, living in sewers. To sort of get Indecline off the ground here, the city really, like, it creates the kind of work and statements that's like, it's perfect for an Indecline.
So it gives you a lot to work with.
Absolutely.
There's a billboard up that is sure to make people look twice. It says, shoot a kid.
2 mannequins hanging from nooses on billboards.
So backing all the way up, what is Indecline and what's the kind of ethos and mission?
I mean, we're technically, for some kind of terminology, an artist collective. It's pretty organic. There's not like a sign-up sheet. We're not like the Shriners or, you know, like the Oddfellows or anything, you know, but we work together on all sorts of different projects. People kind of come in and out based on the project because, like, everybody has different talents. And one of the important things, since we're more message-based than we are personality-based, is that we try to work with whoever's going to make the idea come to life. I mean, the name Indecline kind of gives you some idea of what it's about. We certainly came from harder edge kind of out of the 90s and this gummo sensibility, but it's the idea that, like, a lot of the things, when you look at the political situation today, everybody would tell you politics are pretty fucked. But like in the late 90s to the early 2000s, this is like peak neoliberalism. Everybody thought America was, you know, Wonder Bread and fucking, I don't know, Monopoly and McDonald's. And it was like, it was pretty widely viewed by the citizens here as a good thing, everything else taken for granted. So I think the original ethos that we came out of was to try to show what's going on underneath that fuels the illusion or the dream, you know, the capitalist dream of infinite consumption and infinite wealth, you know, at the expense of sweatshops and, you know, desperate homeless population living in the tunnels.
And structurally, it was always really important to make sure that we have so many elements to what we do artistically. You know, and 20 plus years in, you know, tonight we have a theatrical piece. We've got, you know, the film side of things and the documentaries and all that and the performance art, but we've got the guerrilla art installations and the graffiti element and like the punk background. And so in the Billboard liberation history. So it's the thing that kind of like helps and hurts us the most. It distinguishes us from a lot of different groups in that you can't really put your finger on like what it is we do because we haven't done the same thing for 20 plus years. Like we like getting involved in things that we're technically like, we have no business being involved in for fear of just getting like burnt out and bored. Like, the point of activism is to have fun. Like, contrary to popular belief, if you're going to engage in this kind of stuff, you need to have fun. It needs to serve a therapeutic purpose as much as it serves a public service purpose.
What do you think is the most fun you've ever had doing a spot or doing an installation?
The Trump one.
I mean, all speaking for myself, like, it's really the quiet moments in the midst of the chaos that I really like revel in. So it's being in between a billboard at 4 a.m. in the deep South with like 2 of your best friends. Yeah, you just feel invincible up there. You know, the lights are killed. Yeah, you got your little, like, you know, in the car, you've got your post-job cookie, you know, your little treat that you're going to get for yourself. There's just been so many of those moments where you can just take a second and be like, we're 100 feet up in the air right now in Arkansas, and in 2 hours the sun is going to come up, and this city's going to lose its fucking mind.
And what did that particular billboard say?
It was discovered why Jesus created anal, and there was a hand holding the Bible, and we added shit to the fingers. We changed Holy Bible to Holy Shit, and it was just like, probably of all of our work, the most like South Park, just
crazy.
fart and dick joke thing. But we it was just like, you got to throw those in every once in a while.
Yeah.
And sure enough, like the next morning, there was cops were stopping cars on the road. You know, I mean, it was like meltdown.
And is this
Yeah.
near Little Rock you did this, or is this like Bumfuck Central?
That was
Arkansas?
like a rural one. It's funny because you trade one thing for the other. When you're in Los Angeles doing billboards, when you're in New York doing billboards, you're looking out for the cops. You're looking out for people. There's billions of surveillance cameras. When you're in the deep
That's
south
crazy.
doing billboards, you're looking out for the pickup truck. There's
I give
really
it to
no
him. That take
cops.
hard though.
Surveillance is it's going to be dogs and the random truck that pulls up.
So it's good old boys seeking retribution against the liberals.
Yeah, but but the benefit and the leg up you have in the South is that if you're in Los Angeles and you look up and you see someone on the billboard, think of the graffiti towers. Like, most people know, all right, it's 3 a.m, there's guys on billboards, they're probably tagging it.
Yeah.
Like, you could do a billboard at 5:30 in the afternoon, provided you're not writing anal on it in broad daylight. But there's an argument to be made, and we ultimately started doing them at 8 o'clock at night, you know, which was surreal to like go home and get a good night's rest and not be doing it leading up to the sunrise, because there was this whole, okay, well, we got to do it as close to sunrise as possible, so it's running when the sun comes up. So the press can
Everybody
come
hit
and
the
they
like
can get it,
button,
and
hit the
people
like
can see
button,
it.
hit the
Yeah,
like
if you do
button.
it too early, someone's going to see it. It's going to be down in the middle of the night. It's like it never happened.
So there's midnight buff crews in some of these states.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you're doing something off Melrose, you know, it's like there's enough ambient light. You can turn the billboard lights off, but like somebody's going to see it. And if the message is like crazy enough, they're going to know that it's not some like wacky dispensary writing something, you know what I mean? They're like, hey, that's probably
some sort
not
of like paid street art marketing campaign.
Totally.
Right.
Which, you know, like it's just, you could write a whole book on it, like all the pros and cons, because like to that point in LA, you could write something pretty outlandish and people could be like, well, of course it says Trump's a cunt on the billboard.
Right.
Like it's probably a CrossFit gym.
And there's corporations that do take on guerrilla marketing campaign tactics.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then it's fun to like take them on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we were doing Coachella ones because they try to be all clever. So it's like you go fuck with those ones too. So.
Yeah, it's like the third dimension.
Yeah, exactly.
Controlling the appropriators.
There you go. Yeah.
For you, what do you think's the spot that you've been the most stoked on, or the project that gave you the most gratification?
It's tough because it's kind of like him. The points that like I enjoy the most are usually when we're hiding, because those are the moments that you'll stop and it's like you get a lot of adrenaline, and especially if you're hiding for a while, it can be boring. It's like hopping trains. You're on there for a long time. It takes a lot of time. And you'll like look up and you'll be like, wow, it's a pretty night out, you know?
Yeah.
And
So it's those
like,
sort of solemn moments where you're like, your heart is pumping.
yeah.
A better question is like, as far as feedback goes, what's an example where you feel like the message really hit home in the way that you intended?
I mean, I got a kick out of when we did the thing with Wildman shaking his hand afterwards, you know, because you just sat there for an hour and this dude is just like ripping the most foul shit out, like really going to town. And at the end, you just get to shake his hand and be like, it's really nice to meet you, man. I hope you appreciate what we do.
The mural, don't let me forget before I leave, if it's not raining, I want to go up there, if that's cool, and get some pictures so we can.
Okay.
But you're still okay with us coming back and touching that up?
Yeah, it's okay. You do anything you want to do. I'm glad to have you.
Okay.
Always glad to meet an enterprising entrepreneur.
Don't say we can do anything. We'll put a bunch of Smurfs up there. We'll put a bunch of Antifa Smurfs up there.
Thank you very much.
And it's like, it's all straight face because it's like, it's a hustle. He thinks, you know, he has no idea we're coming back at 2 a.m. to do Smurfs, Antifa Smurfs, which is also just hilarious, underrated.
I think a lot of those, the message gets delivered, but there's probably 2 articles about it on the internet, and it's like, you know, but the people that know about it, it's insane. But you go to like the Trump Hotel and you install the jail and do the flags, and I'm not saying that project wasn't special and cool, but to me, that's just like, you tee it up for him. You know, we invited the press in, so the feedback was nuts. It was the front page of the, you know, the Post the next day, and it was like a whole thing. We've been doing this long enough where you kind of have to take those moments with a grain of salt, and you need to rely on like really what it is to drive away from a lot of these moments with your best friends. And you're reminded of why you do it. And it's not about looking the next day and realizing that the Instagram is performing and that the press inquiries are coming in. It's just that like, there's going to be a piece, you know, like Wheel of Misfortune or some of these other like land art pieces that will be around for quite a long time, and it's a hell of a feat. Like, people just start fucking with that,
We're friends, It looks like y'all are friends too. It's like,
Oh, yeah,
that's
sure.
really important that we're friends. The best moments are like in between, like it's all the riffing and stuff going on. All of these are really rewarding to do. And obviously, the more thoughtful a piece is, the less of an immediate impact it's gonna have. Like, I thought that one we did, El Otro Lado,
I fuck
was
with
like
that Trump
really
one that they
thoughtful. It
did.
was a lot of
Like
work, a lot of
whole
time
body.
investment to just zero
They could have put some
coverage,
draws
Yeah,
on the nigga,
which is
though.
fine.
Because you're also kind of gauging public interest too. Like, I've been in the same position where I make a video that's like extremely low effort, but it's very topical. Like the Free Luigi rally, for example. I go there, I interview maybe 15 people in Washington Square Park
Hit
who
the
were there
like,
to advocate
subscribe,
for
man.
Luigi's
Y'all
freedom,
like
or,
the live, like
at
the
least raise
live, like the
concerns about the
live.
health insurance claim denial system, right?
I said Luigi been the dog since he put his pampers on. Vagabonds ran out the mouth like a marathon.
That gets like 3 million views in one day. Took me no time. I can spend a year on a documentary about an endangered language or something that isn't like at the center of public discussion, and it will have a harder time gaining traction.
But you know what? It's going to be well into your career that those pieces start to rear their head, and there will be so much value to those.
Yeah.
Trust me, because we're starting to see that. Like, we had our big art retrospective at Super Chief last fall.
Yeah, Channel 5 and Indecline collaboration, by the way.
That's true, first time. And it was like, it was when I started to realize, like, oh, people haven't really fucked with El Otro Lado or some of these projects until now. And when I was talking to people,
Everybody hit
or
the
Bill
like button,
and,
man.
and
Y'all
some of
run
the
it up.
gallery folk, like, you started to realize, like, yeah, everyone knows about the Naked Trump shit. Like, they've known about that. So that's worn off. It's what else has this group done? And it's a part of the discovery process for me. When I'm first introduced to a band or a filmmaker or like an author, I love doing the deep dive. I love seeing what they were part of, and that's some of my favorite artists ever are the ones that are always on some different shit, you know? And so I like that we have this body of work where you don't know what your entry to Indecline was. It could have been through graffiti, it could have been from our theatrical background. But at some point you're gonna like start to hit all those little things and be like, damn, I didn't even know y'all like rappelled off buildings and did this or whatever.
And the cultural zeitgeist. And I feel like y'all have witnessed the transformation of the kind of cannibalistic PC culture and tearing down people upon lines of what could be deemed offensive. I feel like you guys have successfully rode that wave throughout 2 different decades.
Yeah, well, not without controversy. You know what I mean? Like, we always talk about this. We talk about, like, Eminem and some of the things that were blasting out of our bedrooms as kids.
Yeah.
Totally normal. Like, parents weren't batting an eye. The Lollapalooza, frickin' Fred Durst era. Just like how much intensity there was then. And then, yeah, like, it seemed like we all blinked and something happened.
I think the reality of a lot of like the fascist undercurrents that were being discussed got super real. And there was kind of this idea of like, all right, guys, no time for jokes, no time for games. Like, we need to be very serious and very presentable. And I think the fence sitters, like the neoliberals that today are condemning the ICE riots, had a lot of headway between 2017 and 2020.
Here's the thing, is that there's like kind of 2 parties. There's like neoliberalism, which is everything up until now. And then there's like at least this proto attempt at like whatever, if there's like the history repeats as a comedy or as a tragedy and then as a comedy, we're kind of in comedy fascism mode. But neoliberalism pretty much since like the 70s, it's like the 2 parties. I've heard you talk a lot about this, and it's something I feel really profoundly. They actually want the same things. Republicans make a tax cut, Democrats extend it. Republicans increase policing, Democrats follow right behind and try to do the same thing. Republicans attack education, Democrats become right behind them and try to like rename the program but keep it basically intact. The project of neoliberalism has been a one-party system for a very long time. They're trying to attack education while they increase the surveillance state. And so I think that like there's this inability on the left to confront, because the left is a little bit more divided in how it shares power. There's a lot of like identity positioning on the left. And so even in Europe, you see it more literally. There's these coalition governments where several parties will have to get together. But the way that the left disperses power, they're usually signing up for a lot of stuff they don't want to do. And they get very, very absorbed in like the ideology of what they're doing more than the practicality. And it goes into like, it's a lot of white collar, it's a lot of like middle class, a lot more education in the party there's something they could learn from kind of like the blue collar roots that they originally came from, like FDR era. And also that's something that has made the Republican Party very successful, is there's a pragmatism to what they do. You could say the pacification, but I would even say it's too like intellectual. And it's like, you need to touch things with their hand.
I think gentrification here is a huge through line too when it comes to like what you're talking about. Because like I grew up in the inner city, right? And like none of those like base level identitarian divisions really took hold because we all had respect for each other. If you look now, what seem to be the most progressive leftist neighborhoods in the country are also the front lines of gentrification. If you go to Bed-Stuy in New York, you will see more flags for leftist causes than anywhere else in the country. Happens to also be the front lines of the class war. So I think there's some kind of like reverse white flight guilt complex that's creating like a corrosive, cannibalistic, self-destructive mechanism here. I could be crazy, but it does seem that way.
A lot of it's just branding too, you know, whether it's conscious or subconscious. I feel like some of these things just like follow suit as they need to, and some of it's posturing, and you know, and then some of it is guilt. Yeah, it's definitely like ever apparent in any of those cities. Yeah, you go, especially over in like Brooklyn and stuff.
Yeah, and y'all never caved to any of that sort of thing, and you guys have stayed consistent for quite a long time.
I think like there's not enough time for it. You know, we haven't even worked hard at. We like to stay independent. I have a firm belief that people can contribute in a myriad of ways to these causes. Some people do it with their wallets. Some people go out like we did and get tear gassed. That's not really like my go-to personally. I'll fuck with it from time to time, you know, but like I know what my strengths are. Same with him. Like, so we try to stay in our lane. It's like just one big game of tug of war, you know? And I always just tell people, just get your fucking hands on the rope. That's all that matters. If you want to get a puffy paint sign and stand in front of Hobby Lobby, whatever. Like, we shouldn't be sitting here and like criticizing.
So there's no bad protest, right?
I don't think there's any bad. Don't hurt anybody, you know? I mean, but like at the end of the day, like just get out there and do something, because the apathy is what kills us.
Yeah. You guys have mentioned two different undercurrents that kind of occurred around the same time. You mentioned surveillance and then also corporatization. So surveillance, 9/11 is definitely the start point of that. I think corporatization, like you were mentioning, is like the post-Reagan, late 90s. I wasn't really around then. Can you guys speak to the difference in that timeline?
Well, it's the entirety of what we do is like culture damage. So here's another weird wrinkle. In the 2000s, the big thing on the left was like the protest globalization. And then, yeah, exactly. That's like how it started. Like I remember being young and like being at protests like that and working with like Food Not Bombs, because that was one that was around. It's become kind of like co-opted by these huge corporations, and these huge corporations are almost out of this phase of capitalism into this weird vector economy where it's not like we're buying stuff. The dream isn't the TV dream anymore. It's not The Simpsons, buy the house, buy the car, buy all the things. It's like we are literally selling our engagement online. We're selling our personality and getting fed with, I thought money was a silly construct, but it's like a little heart on a screen is getting crazy. And that's where people's whole definition comes. That's why there's a lot of the like clicktivism and stuff now, because you get more reward and it's a much stronger drug. You know, it's like to get that immediate endorphin rush when you post something and 20 people hit you up because everybody's living in your same bubble. There's something to that, in that like information is passed. Sometimes it's passed in that kind of way. That would be going to like the virality or even the meme. You know, that's Richard Dawkins back in the 70s writing about it. But at the same time, it's like some things that we do, just like getting your hands in it. It's like there's two things every kid should be forced to do, you know? I would say the third thing is maybe some type of psychedelic, but I don't actually think that's good for everybody.
Infant microdose, not enough.
Yeah, but a microdose, but
like the Rainbow Family.
Every kid should go to a protest and get tear gas once.
Okay.
Just to know like how fragile all this is, this world we live in, you know, and to know that like what it feels like to be on the edge in that fear, because that's what tear gas does, is it puts the fear in you your first time. To know what it would feel like to lose that. And every, you know, kid should have to go out and work a soup line and just see how human the people are, because we live in a first world country, the wealthiest nation on earth, that in any major cities has pockets of a third world country. And we wake up every day, and on the left especially, we're so certain about what's right and wrong. And yet the phone in your pocket has rare metals that come from a mine. You buy a new one every year, the amount of suffering that comes out of that. So many different things that we do every day just have faceless, distant suffering. doesn't mean we should like sit here. Like, I'm not into the guilt complex. We're into self-awareness and interrupting the kind of auto feed of just doing whatever's in front of you.
Right.
The instant endorphins, the clicks. That's what culture jamming is about.
Totally.
That's what consciousness is about.
Yeah.
Who were the foundational members of Indecline?
Well, without getting into legal names, I mean, Aware was obviously one of the founders, myself, and then we had two other friends that are no longer a part of the crew that were
I know how that goes.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm thinking about that shit.
Like,
on my mind.
anybody that's been in a band
right now.
knows how that goes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even so much a breakup as it was like some of us got older and realized that we were in it for the long haul, and other people wanted to start families and go work in like tech or something. You know,
Totally.
It was just like a gradual parting of ways. But yeah, I mean, Aware and I were the remaining kind of like founding faction.
And can you talk about that first project that really put y'all on the map?
The first project to put us on the map? Well, I mean, it depends. Like one of the first things we ever did was a McDonald's billboard here in Vegas.
7 hours ago, McDonald's Corporation ordered the billboard company to take these things down. It's 11:06 right now. Take a look. This billboard up here says Sausage McMuffin with E. coli, not egg, and this is not the only one in town. The signs are altered so well that you may not even notice when you drive by.
We pay attention to the signs. I mean, I see McDonald's, that's it. I don't read what they say.
Which was national news coverage. But it wasn't long after that that Bumfights came out. And that was its own, like, wake up one day and think, what the fuck did we just do? One of the many misconceptions about it is that most of the content in that was filmed in the years, you know, when we were 15, 16, 17 years old, and then sort of compiled later as a part of this bigger video. So to sort of watch those things like retroactively almost like blow up the way it did, like you've seen it for years, you know, and then you put a new thing on it, you send it out, and then Howard Stern mentions it, and it's like, oh, things are changing.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I look back at content that I made when I was 21 years old, and I'm like, fuck, I wish I didn't make that video. I can't imagine 15, 16, 17.
I think that, yeah, it was a really, like, it's a fascinating time to look back on, because when you're that age, I mean, this was the premise was very simple. It was like, we're all skate rats. We're just like, we're gonna go skate where we don't get fucked with. Where is that? Behind grocery stores. Who hangs out behind grocery stores? Homeless people. So who do you become friends with? Who are you like fucking around with all day? You know, like the local homeless guys that you're seeing every day at your skate spot. We didn't have skate parks at that particular, they hadn't started building those yet really for everybody. And so we were still on the loading docks. And so it was like these two subcultures, you know, essentially that like needed to go somewhere where there was shade and places to piss and hang out and do your thing. At that time, you had high 8mm, like super affordable cameras. Everyone got their hands on them. And it was just like, all right, cool. This dude's doing a skate trick. This dude's over here doing some crazy shit. And it all just like developed into tapes and tapes and tapes of crazy shit until one idiot had the idea of putting it all together and taking every high school fight that we'd filmed, and then going out for however many weeks here in Vegas, and then releasing it to the world. And yeah, to say that like, there's been projects we've done where I've known the second it's like the Trump statues, like it was a no-brainer. Like the second this is done, it's gonna fucking go nuts. There was no expectation with that. And to like, watch that do what it did was pretty wild, especially at a time where like VHS
crazy.
Tapes were the main output, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Did you guys shoot that on VX cameras?
we shot some of the final stuff on VX cameras, but a lot of it was shot on high 8 tapes.
Okay, cool.
So like most of that source material is like dates way back to like
Yeah,
8mm
bling,
and
bling.
high 8 tapes. So we're talking like 97, 98, you know, like, and then VXs came later.
Yeah, and it's like a
Yeah, I was born
different,
in
like
98.
one of the misconceptions too is that you'd have to like dial back to the 90s to know what it's contemporaneous with. Just to give context where maybe the impetus came from, it was like the era of Girls Gone Wild, Tom Green, Jackass, like all these things that like were influencing it. And then at the same time, it was like Gummo, and you have like all these kind of weird film because, you know, obviously that's an influence too. So this crazy, even down to like Un Chien Andalou, you know? And so it's this kind of like heavily shocking, and then you're living in this counterculture, and then all these places, Southern California, Las Vegas, had perfected the dream versus underbelly dichotomy that you have going. And if you are doing skateboarding, it's different. There's no Nigel Houston. the X Games are like just starting, you know? It's like Tony Hawk is not the level of famous he is. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is just coming out. It was a lot more of a countercultural activity. This is one thing I would like to address, and maybe you can help out with, because like I've watched, and I went and like, for example, Dear Kelly, you have this entire thing where you're spending time with this person. Now, there's a lot of people who, for example, might be on the left and watch what you do and think that you're just like taking the piss out of them. But when I view that stuff and listening to the way you talk about it, I think there's a real sensibility of like caring. Politics hasn't always been the most important thing. I think there's some of that in this too, that it wasn't like this antagonistic relationship. It was like he said, you're hanging out together. There's real relationships there, you know? Even go to say friendships with a lot of the people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I remember sitting in court playing tapes from multiple years worth of Thanksgivings and Christmases and explaining to like the prosecutor, like, there's a reason this isn't in the video. There's a reason that one of the main pieces of evidence that we introduced that got us out of a lot of trouble was the raw footage of Aware and I breaking up a fight, and you could audibly hear us saying, stop, stop. And we played that in court, and the judge was like, what's the problem? And we're like, we're not gonna put that, like, we weren't interested in doing a fucking documentary at 16 years old. You know, and flash forward to being like 18, 19, like we were growing up watching, like, I mean, Gummo couldn't have been more influential. Like, so for us, it's like, this is our Gummo. Like, let's make something that, sure, we'll call it a cause for concern. That's the Indecline part of it. That's the, like, if you look at that subtitle, that's that little, like, we're making a statement, but really it's going to be 50 minutes of what the fuck, man. Like, this is it. And we followed up with It's Worse Than You Think, which was a lot more, I think, like, pointed and sort of an accurate depiction of saying, like, this is what we were trying to do. We should have never called it Bumfights, frankly. I think that was the biggest fuck up.
I think the title fucked it up, but it also led to a lot of sales too. But if you watch the video, there's no time in the movie where you're paying bums to fight.
Exactly.
There's like people fighting in high school, you guys skating, and then bums just doing shit.
It was like the word, but you're right. If it weren't for that name, you know, we could have called it something completely different, but that name did everything. And, you know, the irony is that it wasn't out for 6 months, maybe 4, and the 4 Indecline people that were associated with it, we all just sold the rights to it and fucked off. We got rid of it as soon as we possibly could, because we had bigger aspirations, and we were like, okay, this do it again. We don't need this anymore.
So how old were you when you sold the rights?
18.
Damn. So that Dr. Phil interview that most people credit as being an interview with the Bumfights director and Dr. Phil is not actually you guys.
Not at all. That went into a whole nother realm, and it's like a kind of a different chapter interview completely. But like the fascinating thing about that was when we sold the rights, the criminal and civil investigations were heating up. So you have the people we sold it to who now own the rights to it. So it's in their best interest to get on TV and do the most outlandish press. Release the sequels and
as a marketing
thing. So when they're doing interviews talking about how they've made millions and they've got tigers in their house and they're gonna like, and granted, the Phil thing was brilliant. It was fucking hilarious. But we're catching, even for all everyone knows, it's like it's just the Bumfights guys, you know. So we had to go face all the fallback from that. And luckily, you know, this is just a lesson to anybody in like your profession and ours. Don't hit stop. Like, let that camera roll, because it could be the difference, especially this day and age, between a long prison sentence and a judge saying, what's the problem here? These kids can go free. You know, if it weren't for us just like always rolling camera, we wouldn't have hours of that like supplemental footage to go, listen, there's nothing to market here, but you need to understand, like he said, these are people we care about. You're dealing with 2 different things, like most situations. There's another side to this. And like, I know the easy story here is that like punk skate kids like went and did this thing, but in reality, there is a difference between handing someone $5 in anticipation that they're gonna do something to hurt themselves, and spending a day documenting their life, which is going to involve drinking. It's going to involve extracting a tooth, possibly with or without you there with the camera. Anyone that's been around this knows that. And handing someone that $5 at the end of the day and being like, grab Taco Bell, man, have a good night. We'll see you in you know, whatever. And that's just such a fine line for people. And for us, it was another Tuesday night.
Yeah, there's a very special bond between, I think, like teenage delinquents. Like I grew up in Seattle, which is also kind of a lords and peasants style thing where you have massive glass condominiums and expensive luxury homes. And then you look under a bridge and there's thousands of homeless people doing their thing.
Totally.
There's a special union between kids who want to skate, drink, smoke, kick it, and local homeless people.
Absolutely.
Because you can't go to bars, you
Yep.
can't be in the streets because your parents might find you or you could have trouble with the cops. So you
Yep.
become really close friends with the local homeless population.
really do.
And I remember like every bum that lived near my mom's spot was like my homeboy.
Yeah, well, they look out for you and you look out for them. You know, my particular case, it felt like South Park in the sense that there was like, oh, these are the two dudes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like Vegas where there was hundreds of homeless people. I mean, they're just like,
Yeah.
there was two guys that everybody in the community knew.
And where was the first scenes filmed?
Well, both places. So Where was out here, and then other scenes were filmed in San Diego area.
What were the name of those two dudes?
Rufus and Donnie.
And those are the most famous guys.
Yeah, I mean, and Rufus was introduced to us from, I mean, this was like back when we were a lot younger, but it was like the older kids, these older like college kids saying, you know, there's a homeless guy that's like a stunt bum, right? And just putting us on to a guy that like did crazy shit. And like what 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid isn't gonna like go visit Rufus and be like, what the fuck? You know, he's like, oh yeah, this is my deal.
So I just want to, a couple things too, just while we're talking about it to give people some peace of mind. We wouldn't do that as like much older people today because that's part of being like 15, 16, 17. Like there's no version of today that happens without that. It's so formative in who we are to this day. The anonymity isn't just about like protecting ourselves, but it's also a thing you learn seeing. Like that was one of the first viral things. That was one of the first cancellations.
Why in the world would anybody buy this thing?
It's like there's a lot of stuff that we didn't have the lexicon, the vocabulary for today, and living it was good for our future in helping us to be focused on what we want to do. 20 years later, you know, there's going to be people who are going to be convinced that we're absolutely awful human beings for that, and completely understand that. That's everybody's right. No one agrees on everything. We like to think that 20 years of work has shown where our intentions lie, but also understand that everybody's entitled to an opinion. And also, just while we're on it, like, and for those who think there haven't been consequences, it's like there have 20 years of them. It's like down to like, it affects your professional life, even your dating life. It's like, it's a huge thing that we have like, and will continue to pay. And also just like, aren't even complaining because like we've reached a moment where we do things that we believe in. Anybody who's trying to do art that's gonna push the edge of culture or be there is going to fuck up at times. We're not perfect people. Some friends of ours said, heroes are human, you know? And sometimes humans are trash. And it's like, even with our best intentions, we even make mistakes that would be the first. There's projects we've done, and I'm sure that you've done that, going back, wouldn't do that again, you know?
Yeah, I used to feel bad. I used to like, you know, my earlier style was kind of ambush oriented when I first started, because that was the easiest way to make a name for yourself. Is like, I wasn't trying to make people look stupid, but I felt bad because I would present as like a friend to somebody, but deep down I like deeply disagree with them and like wanted to lampoon them in some capacity. I was 21, not 16, but I look back and think, man, I wish I would have like kept it more real, and at least even just told them, hey, I'm trying to make a funny documentary. I'm not asking for your serious opinion about the flat Earth.
You might not be sitting here though if you did that, and that's the thing about like kickstarting a career when you're young is, you know, we jumped headfirst into this. We bypassed all formal training. We bypassed all the necessary education. We became, you know, sociologists and documentarians and all these things at a young age just because it was fascinating. One of our first projects was like, on one hand, a massive thing, but also like life altering.
Totally.
And so I wouldn't change it for the world because I mean, it's why I'm sitting here, and it's also been fun to like, you get further enough beyond it. And I almost disagree with you saying about like how 20 years from now, like I think 20 years from now, I don't know that it will become any worse than it was like when we were talking about, you know, like the post, you know, the pussification era. I feel like it's gonna, like, look where we're living now.
Yeah.
You know, like how fucked things are and how ridiculous. Like Bumfights, to explain it to somebody now feels so much more tame than it did like in 2010, you know? And so I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if it was on the Criterion Channel one day.
That's probably the only fucking silver lining in the Trump era. The only one.
Yeah. Well, and ironically, like that whole demographic, you're telling me Joe Rogan and all of those people like wouldn't fuck with it?
Of course.
You know, like, and so I just don't, you know, like, whatever. It's not even worth talking about. We're not going to do another Bumfights, but it's just funny to think about like how crazy it's, you know.
I kind of want to.
Steve-O doesn't fuck with this.
Steve-O fucking hates us, bro.
What'd he say?
Sorry, Steve-O. I'm not heartbroken that Steve-O doesn't like. You put Werner Herzog in that situation, and then I'd be heartbroken.
Totally.
You know what I mean? But it's like, fucking, it's Steve-O, but we always think it's funny that like.
He kind of is a stunt bum.
He kind of is the original.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Maybe
Like,
that's why he fucking hates us.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something to circle back on the left now. Now that we've kind of talked about this, it makes it easier to mention that one of the wild things to me about the left right now is that, like, I've always been someone who's concerned with what we were saying, surveillance, policing, since I was young. You know, it's like, we're not just like anarchists technically, like we've got library educations, but, you know, we're not like theorists or anything. There's much smarter people that people should be reading. That's why we're not writing theory books. Yeah. But like in spirit, we grew up that way. One of the problems with the way that we have developed this concept, cancel culture, which I also hate because it's just another one of those terms
they can
that
admit
like,
they
it's
know
just
they
become propaganda.
They know
In
they
general,
got
it's
some
so
type of
weighted
smart
before you even talk about it.
And cancel culture is about canceling.
And that's one of the things that we got to focus on as a movement on the political right. Breaking through the cancel culture, breaking through the censorship.
The goal of cancel culture is to make decent Americans live in fear of being fired, expelled, shamed, humiliated, and driven from society as we know it.
well, I mean, I want to differentiate the two terms because when people say cancel culture on the right wing, they typically mean getting banned from Facebook for speaking about the vaccine. They typically mean the fact that Roseanne can't go back on Nickelodeon. I think on the left, what that refers to is like the systematic social exile that happens when somebody either makes a mistake or goes against the mainstream opinion.
Yeah, so if you don't have accountability and a path to restitution, then you're in the French Revolution. And if you remember how that ended, Robespierre was the last dude with his head on the guillotine. Yeah. It's like, and it's the same thing. It's like, and to be honest, because being an anarchist, I remember every great socialist revolution and every great fascist, you know, like the Nazis, you know, like Mussolini. The first thing they all do is kill the anarchists. It doesn't matter if it's Stalin or Lenin or like Hitler, all of them come straight for that because they all are fighting for who gets to be the police. I think the better thing is to encourage people to live in a world where we can have open lines of communication with each other that encourage people to give up maybe ignorant ideas and to grow together. You know, it's like, that's something you talk about in Dear Kelly and a lot of your projects, you know, in the tunnels, is the idea of wanting to help people. And I don't think we've ever lost that either. It's like post the entire debacle with the origins of Indecline, I'll still go do soup lines, and we're still involved with helping like people in unhoused spaces. Don't like the term unhoused because I do feel they're being deprived. Houses exist, so they're being deprived of the houses they could be living in by exorbitant wealth. It's not like
especially
we're getting around to solving the problem.
It shows that anyway.
Yeah.
But it's like, but the whole idea is that like the people I'd like the least, you know, the people whose ideas I disagree with the most strongly, I would pick any one of them over a system. Anarchism is just believing in people over the constructs they invent. People are very complicated. They're capable of great. The worst person is capable of a truly selfless act, and the best person is capable of being an absolute piece of shit. And it's like, if you haven't figured that out again, experience might teach you that, you know? Like, that's the biggest thing out of the early part of our careers. I think it was like this crazy instant education in kind of the mechanics of that, in like forgiveness, redemption, but more just like, even for us, accountability. How we talk about projects today, like, we're clowns, that's our thing.
Yeah.
But like, we're surprisingly thoughtful for clowns because we've learned that you need to be, because the biggest thing is not whether people don't like you, it's whether the thing that you put all your time and energy into as an artist is being heard the way you'd like it to be heard. And if you do all that and then it just gets thrown out, it's like, that almost hurts worse than like someone doesn't like you. Like if you're an artist, you're already used to being a little quirky and weird, and people aren't going to like you, you know, but it's like you don't want to be misrepresented. So it makes you more thoughtful. I hope that's something even for you, you know, it's like I've been watching and I'm super impressed. It's like you've been incredibly thoughtful, and I think it's why you found such a good path towards integration is that it's hard to argue with the message of what you're doing. It's like people are people.
Yo, what's up, everybody? While activists like Indecline are fighting the good fight against fascism, the powers that be are protecting each other around the world. Earlier this year, Bolsonaro, the ultra-right-wing former president of Brazil, was put on trial for attempting to overturn the 2022 election that ousted him from power. This week, Donald Trump announced a retaliatory 50% tariff on Brazil for their treatment of Bolsonaro, calling it an international disgrace and a witch hunt. As we know, in this hectic world, different outlets push different agendas, shaping the story to fit their own narratives, which is why independent reporting matters, and we here at Channel 5 are 100% committed to bringing y'all raw, unfiltered coverage straight from the streets. But before we hit the streets, we get informed using what, you might ask? Ground News. Ground News is a dope-ass news aggregate that lets you see exactly how different media outlets, left, right, and center, are covering the same story as it unfolds. Here, as you can see, using the Ground News bias distribution tool, the left and the right are covering Trump's tariff on Brazil quite differently. The left-leaning MSNBC headline reads, 50% Brazil tariffs are an erratic and chaotic approach, while the right-wing Breitbart headline reads, Trump imposes 50% tariff on Brazil over witch hunt against Jair Bolsonaro. Not too hard to spot the bias there, right? Ground News. Another thing I love about Ground News is how it helps you figure out what's genuinely newsworthy by showing you how many sources are covering a story. That kind of transparency helps you clock if an article's legit or just nonsense, born inside of an algorithmic echo chamber to control your mind. Another feature I love to use at Ground News, the blind spot tool, which shows me and you the stories that might not be appearing in your typical media bubble. We've all got one. That's why I trust Ground News. Vantage plan, bringing the cost down to less than Ground News, media coverage that isn't watered down. The media tells slander.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, but it's interesting that you know, anyone can say anything about anyone. And
if there's a problem, the problem isn't what celebrities do. It's like, who gives a fuck about Kanye or Beyonce? It's like, there's real people in your lives you could be like helping out, you know? It's like, what's important is the idea that celebrity exists is something so fucked and out of kilter in our culture. It's
horrible.
The idea, it's like we're still their religions, you know? It's a harvest ritual where we just like put a person up at the pedestal so we can burn them at the end of the season and our crops come back.
Yeah.
And it's like,
well, hence the masks.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of this is like, obviously there's a tactical it's a safety precaution, but it also insulates us from having a face, from having a voice, from having a spokesperson.
Yeah.
You know, like alternating interviews, you know, changing things up enough so that like you don't have to worry about like that representative being, you know, I mean,
so when you pedestalize a single person, they become an object of scorn,
or they end up like Fred Hampton,
murdered by the CIA.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm just saying, like, you fucking, I'm happy to sit here and like do this on the verge of heat stroke with a mask on because it's like you got it.
And not to mention, we're committed to Nevada as a unit. You guys live here, but I actually have Nevada tatted on my arm.
I'm wondering
this
how
was
they
done 5 years ago, so I didn't get this one before the interview.
Exactly. Yeah. So
that would be sick if you did. That
Yeah.
would be a flex.
Wait, I want to back up though. For the real Bumfights nerds out there, was Bling Bling found in California or Nevada?
He was found on the boulevard here.
You're going to hear this. Oh, when we're coming, you're going to hear this.
Fremont or Strip?
Strip.
Where?
World's largest gift shop.
In front of Bonanza or behind?
Right in front of it, Las Vegas Boulevard and Sahara.
At the stoplight?
Right there.
Okay, what was he doing?
He had a Winnie the Pooh PJ set. Like the first time we met him, I'm saying, he was, he had a good little fit going. He had like a Winnie the Pooh thing. He had a tinfoil sort of like head dress looking thing that he made for himself. Yeah. And he was just like performing, like right out the gate. What was the rapper that just hit us up?
Oh, should we say that?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Lil Uzi Vert.
Lil Uzi Vert.
Lil Uzi Vert is interested in locating the whereabouts of Bling Bling?
Lil Uzi Vert just sent us a check to sample Bling Bling on his new record.
Fuck yeah, which quote?
It was one of the songs. It was like something about aliens, one of his like alien songs.
I had contact with extraterrestrial beings, my brother. When you're abducted by beings, you go to 3 encounters. Close encounters of the first kind, close encounters of the second kind, and close encounters of the third kind.
And so we need to track Bling Bling down because the record came out. We talked with the label. The track got scrapped, or the intro got scrapped, but they cut us a check, and so we're trying to like find him and get him his money.
I've seen a couple videos of Bling Bling, one in San Francisco in the Tenderloin, one downtown LA. Do we have any update as to his whereabouts?
So the last time we heard from him, he was in San Francisco. Ironically enough, right around the corner from where we had filmed some scenes for It's Worse Than You Think. There was a halfway house there that was like a one flew over a cuckoo's nest situation. So he was there, but like he'll pop into a rehab thing, get a phone, and then, 48 hours later, he's gone. And I mean, such is our relationship with him. You get a call from jail, you get a call from a random cell phone number that he has access to for half a day. And I think really the only way to do it is to just get like, you got to either have a good comrade with the time and the patience in that town, or you just got to like be there at the right time.
Well, let's do this. If you're watching this and you've spotted Bling Bling lately, please tell him to get in contact. He knows who to get in contact with.
And if you're watching this, do not tell him Lil Uzi Vert fucking sent us. Tell him that we need to get some money to him. But the last time a rapper fucked with him, it was Ice Cube and the West Side Connection. They put a Bumfights quote on a West Side Connection. We made the mistake of telling him that, and 48 hours later, he had West Side Connection tattooed across his shoulders.
But the point being, even decades later, you guys still want to help him if you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not helping, it's his. He earned it.
Let me tell you, like, one of the coolest things ever was like living in San Diego with Bling Bling as a neighbor and watching a crackhead get fat.
You got
squeezed by a day. And I think really the only way to do it is to just get like, you got to either have a good comrade with the time and the patience in that town, or you just got to like be there at the right time.
Well, let's do this. If you're watching this and you've spotted Bling Bling lately, please tell him to get in contact. He knows who to get in contact with.
And if you're watching this, do not tell him Lil Uzi Vert fucking sent us. Tell him that we need to get some money to him. But the last time a rapper fucked with him, it was Ice Cube and the West Side Connection. They put a Bumfights quote on a West Side Connection. We made the mistake of telling him that, and 48 hours later, he had West Side Connection tattooed across his shoulders.
But the point being, even decades later, you guys still want to help him if you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, no, it's not helping. It's his. He earned it.
Let me tell you, like, one of the coolest things ever was like living in San Diego with Bling Bling as a neighbor and watching a crackhead get fat.
You got him clean for a bit.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, like fat. He got fat.
Like 250?
He got big, dude. Like, got his teeth fixed, put on weight, and was like actually fucking doing, like, living his best life. Like had responsibilities, had a little cash in his pocket. And that was just like always the thing with these relationships and these stories we tell people. It's like, yeah, man, there was a time where like Bling was on some shit and we put a camera on it, but like it was no different with Rufus and Donnie. Like we put 40 grand in a bank account for them. We had a trustee situation. There was rent, there was apartment keys. There was like, you're off the streets now. Here's your groceries every week. You want a sex worker? We got you,
Yeah.
Just let's ease up on the drinking. That's the only thing we ask. Because it's the one thing that's going to keep you in this situation, like no one's enforcing anything, but it's like we can get you on a path, and then you wake up one day and some attorneys kidnap them and take them to California to sue us.
If I'm not mistaken, those dudes got something, maybe not a book deal.
Well, Rufus did a book with this like vulture fuck that grabbed him and whispered in his ear, and I mean we weren't in a really great position at that time, I mean especially once they were taken. Because it was misrepresentation of like, they're attorneys. They're going to tell them they're going to make a lot of money, and then of course they're not. And we sat across from those tables with those same attorneys, and we were like, we'll spend all this money. Like, you'll never get a dime out of us. You know what I mean? Like, we'll take care of these guys on our own time, but it's not going to be through you.
So we know one of them passed away.
Rufus died in a car wreck.
Were you able to reconcile with him before that?
We never got in touch with him, no, which is a major bummer.
Yeah.
Like Rufus was like, he was a real one. For sure. And so, yeah, a lot of good times, like, met all our parents, like the dude was like a part of the family for sure, like went through some stuff, but like eventually, one of the big ironies with that story is like the running theme of exploitation and manipulation, and to get to a point where the chapter became when the suits got involved and the exploitation, the manipulation that happened like behind closed doors. And just that moment where we all realized like, oh, they're actually going to fuck this dude. Like, they just took him out of the only he's back on the streets now.
Yeah.
Like, he had AC, he had a pool, he was, you know what I mean? Like he was fine. And now he's back on the streets being promised millions of dollars he'll never see.
A lot of people don't understand that like the coercive force of like media outlets, journalists, and also attorneys, like they will look for a star victim in any situation.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
yeah,
that's
for sure.
It's not right. We were being used for their personal gain.
You know, another term that I saw you use in an interview that I love is explaining to people the difference between, for example, journalism and punditry, you know? And it's like, there is an entire, a new thing, a media ecosystem that's just built around the spectacle of things that maybe started around that time. That's also the beginning of like reality television,
Springer.
you know? And so, yeah, Springer was like, well, Springer was a little bit before that, but that's what we're growing up on.
I mean, content based solely around outrage.
Yeah, exactly. And outrage, again, being the dopamine fix, it's like...
That's the commodity that's higher than information.
But it's also, you know, it's kind of like a necrotic emotion. Like, it doesn't really build or lead. There's no wisdom at the end of that tunnel. It just kind of burns up the inside of us. You want to know what's radical politics right now? There's a lot of things, but one thing is just to look at your friends and remind them it's gonna be okay. People lived through Nero, you know? People have lived through like real genocides and found like meaning in life and lived lives. People lived through Russia when they were in bread lines, you know? It's like people have done so many crazy things, and yet like the ego-driven part of every one of us believes we are the exact center of not just the universe, but history, you know? I don't give a shit about Trump, Biden, any of them. We only talk so much because he likes to talk about him. That's the joke of it. He's the reality television president. You know, most of them were doing this neoliberalism thing, and then it became the cult of personality. But like the radical thing is to remind people that they are also contributing to that. And take our licks for that because we did the statues and all that. It was a joke, but like,
sure.
Yeah.
At some point, it's just like, if that's all you can talk about, if that's your entire personality as being against the guy, then he already beat you. You know, it's like if you can't come up with any positive construction for the world you want to oppose it, and all you can say is not that guy. That guy's the worst. It's like
in general too. Like if you can't, you have to be able to speak about what are you for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very easy to talk about what you're against. You know, like talk to any straight edge vegan. They're the most negative fucking people. And then eventually, you know, maybe they'll get around to saying something.
Yeah.
They're just angry all the fucking time.
Yeah, they're talking about factory farms and shit. You're like, geez, I know it sucks there.
It's like,
We
do you
can't
ever
anything.
smile?
Yeah.
Your music sucks. You're fucking, you know, but it's like.
You do think straight edge music sucks compared to the punks you drink?
I think straight edge music is like tolerable at best. Straight
Yeah.
up. And I've been straight edge for fucking ever.
Yeah.
You know? But it's like, listen, I fuck with it, but like I'm not gonna lie. It's a spoonful at a time.
Dude, you guys mentioned San Diego. So when you guys were young, was there like legit Nazi punk bands in like El Cajon and out there in the
Santee.
boonies? And Santee.
Clan T.
So that's a real thing.
Fuck yeah.
Because my homie told me that like back in San Diego in the 90s and 80s, there was legitimately rivalries between fascist and anti-fascist punk bands like it's England. Did that, you know, persist throughout the
No, I mean, we kind of got out of there at some point, but like, I certainly remember in the 90s, like Clan T got its name for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't.
I guess just for me, it's unfathomable to think about a fascist punk.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, people are so fucking dumb. Look, if people can misconstrue Rage Against the Machine lyrics the way they do, I mean, we've worked with so many bands, and, you know, the most like politically outspoken punk bands will do like a thing with them or a music video with them, and then we always laugh because people get in the comments, and when you work with us, like there's gonna be, it's not gonna be sugar-coated, and they'll be like, oh man, since when did you guys get so political? It's like, what are you listening to? Like this is, and I think it's genuinely like shit they listen to at the gym or something. It's like their pump-up stuff, like Rage. Like sure, it would be great to work out to that, but if you're not listening to the lyrics, like what are you doing? So I think that's where you end up with that confusion.
I want to talk to you guys pivoted headquarters around 2020.
Yeah.
I remember we talked back then because we've been in touch for what, 7-8 years?
Yeah.
I remember you told me, you're like, dude, I feel like we've kind of done what we can out here in California and on the frontier. We want to move to Mississippi.
Yeah.
I want to talk about what caused that and how that was.
Allegedly.
Yeah, we
Allegedly.
moved him. George Floyd happened. Yeah. And, you know, like anybody in our field, we were talking about racial inequality, police brutality, all these things. And for us, that's always on the docket. But there just became a time, it was that summer when we were riding freight trains through the Deep South, which is something we do often. and then took a road trip through the Delta. And yeah, it was just like heavy on our mind.
You guys went to Clarksdale and Yazoo City. And
we went all over. Yeah, we fucked with the Delta.
Up, dude.
And it was gnarly.
It's dope.
Yeah,
it's gnarly.
but it just, I had, you know, like, I'd always loved the South. And there just sort of became this, like, I don't know, it's just dwelling on the hypocrisy, I guess, of, like, does LA need another anti-racist political protest piece right now? You know, there's enough of that happening.
So it wasn't because you felt like racism on the West Coast got fixed. You felt like it had been co-opted by people who just, like, don't care.
I think it just became more about, like, I knew for certain that if Indecline was operating in Arkansas, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, places in this country that are severely overlooked in every sense of the word, every budget, everything, that like that work for the people that lived in those states that felt the way we felt, it would make more of a difference. You know, it's like we were talking about all these things with historical roots in those cities and states, but yet we're like sitting in a fucking coffee shop in Silver Lake plotting our next thing, you know, like surrounded by people of different ethnicities, you know? And so, and sure enough, it was like, it wasn't our first billboard that we did in the South, and it was something regarding women's reproductive rights. And it became apparent with the reaction, both the public and the press, that like, this is where we need to be. Like, we need to work out here.
And it's like, you know, we're like, of course we wish we were like Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton, but we're not. We're like Jerry Rubens and Abby Hoffman. Yeah.
And Andy Kaufman.
And Andy Kaufman.
That's right. Yeah. Real method actors.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for what we do in particular, humor is at the root of it. Humor is the best way to get people you don't agree with to pause long enough to listen to what you're saying. It's actually the way to get through to them, just like freestyling is. That's universal language. And so is a joke. In fact, you can go watch like the one where we did the God Bless Abortions. There are literally people whose entire life, they're content creators that their entire thing is anti-abortion, that are cracking up on set in the middle of their thing talking about how outraged they are. They just don't see shit like that. There's the mischievous kid in everybody that's just like, you're not supposed to do that. And Snickers, everybody's so jaded on the West Coast. It's like, they have racism there too, and the East Coast. It's called gentrification.
Yeah.
Talking about it earlier. It's like they still have it, they just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
But down there, it's like you can, like culture jamming is, it's like a defibrillator. It just interrupts people's normal relationship with the day, and maybe their brain just automatically resets and they'll be like, oh yeah, this is propaganda. This billboard's propaganda. McDonald's is actually not food, it's dog shit, you know? It's dog shit in a fancy wrapper.
Talking to a news reporter 50 plus years after billboard liberation was sort of conceived and put into practice.
Turning strategic corporate elements back on themselves in a manner which is itself invisible.
And like listening to her come to the realization that that's what happened to the billboard was crazy. Like,
how long did it take?
Like a full call. Because I just get into it automatically thinking like, of course you know that the stickers or pasters or were put up there under the cover of darkness. It's just one big assumption, because how else would have that happened? You know? Yeah, it was like a full reset. Let's go back to the beginning, and then like walking her through step by step. No, we drove there at night. We turned the lights off. We climbed up. We put that up. No, the billboard company doesn't know about it. No, we didn't have permission. And yeah, like he said, the little like, the laughter and that like little like, okay, yeah, well, I fuck with, I can't say anything about it, but like, that's what's up, that's dope. And so it just feels, we're not in it for, we don't need pats on the, like we know when we do a good job, you know, like we know when we fuck up, we hold ourselves accountable more than anybody. There's that part in us, just that natural, like, you know, I always remind people, when you grow up skateboarding and you grow up in graffiti, the basis of those art forms is challenge. It's looking at something and being like, I want to do that. I hope I can do that. I hope I don't break my neck. I hope I don't get arrested. I hope I don't die, you know? And with our kind of activism, you know, can we form a relationship with a raging Confederate racist for 6 months and convince him to paint his building? Can we paint an entire runway? Can we stage a fucking theatrical play that, like, you know, all of those things are challenges. And to do those in rural Alabama, when you know that it's like, not a trespassing charge that you're going to get When those headlights hit you, it's the best of everything, you know, especially when that next day rolls around and the sun comes up and you've got every women's reproductive center in the entire area in other states sending you messages of support, and you're able to funnel those donations that you're getting off the t-shirts that you made from that project, raise those, like, what more could you ask for? Off of having fun, off of making jokes, you know, off of not being negative and spending time with your friends. It's the greatest possible way to live life. So, you know, thinking of that, I didn't even have to move to the South to know that that's what would happen. It was so obvious to me on that train trip, you know, while we were all talking about it. And the turnaround was almost immediate. It was like 2 months later and the U-Haul was on the road.
Is there ever a concern about like going to jail for a long time and getting hemmed up on the federal level?
I mean, you hope not, but
yeah,
anybody who plays this game, it's like, it's a possibility. You know, you have a graffiti background, it's like, that's a possibility all the time. People end up, even when they don't go to jail, people just end up so mired in the system, fighting charges, pleading. They just, you know, it's like you do activism and protest. Look what they did to those kids in fucking Cop City. And I'm sure.
In Atlanta?
Yeah. I'm sure they're like, go read into it.
Georgia launched a crackdown on the movement, characterizing it as a violent extremist organization. And in September, 61 people were charged in a wide-ranging racketeering case.
Beyond just like shooting tear gas at them, the stuff they did, the tactics they used with the legal system to try to fucking ruin those kids' lives. To just drop charges when they were done absolutely fucking them up, you know, for several years. It's like,
well, fucking up the protest movement too, because it's the tactic is terrorism charges.
Yeah.
Most of them are also facing state domestic terrorism charges, the first such cases in Georgia's history.
And as soon as you start putting federal, those gnarly charges on people, it's obviously built to dissuade them, and it works like a charm.
You guys ever caught a T-bird?
No, we have never caught a T-bird. As crazy as a lot of this stuff looks, these projects have so many weeks and sometimes months of planning and discussions. It's like the most well-oiled bank robbery you could imagine. Every billboard, every project, not just the like execution of the thing, but all of the fallout conversations and all of the okay, let's just say everything goes wrong. Like, what are we looking at here? Is it worth it? You know, is there a more creative way to do this with like the same punchline that doesn't involve the fucking federal charge?
Them niggas might be
so sometimes that can be like the difference between, and we have learned this, like some railroad tracks or a fence that you go over that you just don't know, like you've just stepped onto federal property.
You can't do that. Those are federal fucking charges. That's a federal fucking crime.
You got to do your research.
Yo, y'all know the deal. Corporate surveillance is real, and I'm not just talking about Palantir here. The algorithm knows your secrets, and your data is being traded around like Pokemon cards at a third-grade lunch table. If you ever typed in where to watch Superbad for free into a search bar, congratulations, asshole. A data broker now owns a PDF copy of your soul. For that reason, I use Incognito, the privacy tool that makes invasive data hoarders delete your information forever. Maybe you're looking for a job on Indeed, or you just got out of a relationship and you're on Tinder or Hinge trying to meet somebody new. Maybe you're signing petitions for a good cause or trying to find a new apartment on Zillow. Well, guess what? Your name, email, home address, IP data, and shopping history is being scooped up and sold to whoever's paying the big bucks for it. Mostly companies you never even heard of. That's where Incognito comes in. They reach out to these pesky data broker sites on your behalf, file official removal requests, and fight back when these companies try to play dumb and keep your info. After I signed up, Incognito hit 86 data brokers up on my behalf that have my information. A week later, I noticed a massive drop in spam emails. No more fake property scams or creepy phone calls from healthcare providers I never even contacted. Gone, poof, forgotten. Like you know, called some Channel 5 to get 60 link later. Facebook and helps keep Channel Vegas. And like it being talked about. We're not going to mention the name of the document or anything like that. But as far as those fucking trained people, they're the most militant in the world.
They really are.
They don't like being discussed.
They don't, but they sure love that the culture's still alive.
Yes.
And I don't know how it survives without
busking, I suppose.
Yeah, but it's like again, like we just stay away from it. We're going to do our thing. We think that we've been riding trains for a very long time. You don't ever fucking see anyone else riding trains. There's no problem. It's not like everyone going to the steps where Joaquin danced and
Yeah,
now
yeah,
everyone's doing it. You know, like it's
So you don't
just,
see hobos with stick and bindles talking about Vietnam.
No, you
complaining about migrants
you
taking
see
their jobs
dead
away.
deer, and you, yeah, it's a very isolated, private thing.
Yeah,
and
isolating but picturesque.
Beautiful.
Comparatively to hitchhiking, which is hypersocial but visually grotesque.
It's beautiful. That's another thing. Yeah, maybe not every kid should train hop, but every kid should hitchhike at once.
Oh yeah, that's the shit.
Absolutely. It's one of the most profound ways to see the world from the human perspective.
Yeah.
And
Same.
train hopping is the most profound way to see it from the physical landscape. It's just, you're rarely by the road. You go through we went through Appalachia once. I can't.
On train.
Yeah, like 50 feet from Deliverance level, like shit, you know, like creeping through the middle of the night.
Like
while
Hatfield McCoy territory.
Dude is like at his burn pile in the overalls, and you're just on the train, and you're like, he has no idea we're here. But it's like we were just saying about, you know, making sure you do your research and you plan. Above all things, if you're going to go do something like that, you need to make absolute sure that you're in like really good shape.
We could be saving some kid's life right now, telling him to hitchhike before train hopping.
Yeah, it's a good run up, or just like go find a Costco parking lot and chase your friend's car down, you know, and make sure you can catch the windowsill or something a few times.
Yeah, so you guys have talked a lot about, you know, lessons learned over the course of this career, and you guys have done a couple different things that definitely made me like kind of see a full transition from the Bumfights era until now. One of those being the house in Oakland. It has something to do with you guys like actually building tents for homeless people?
Yeah, so for years we were always using billboards as a canvas to, you know, we were altering them. Billboard Liberation was, we'd get up there, we'd change the message, and then one of our homies, Pemex and Sugar Bombing and Nico from the Bay Area, they actually approached us with this concept to make a project that was, we were going to take the entire billboards down. So we would box cutter around the entire surface, liberate the entire billboard, and then we took them to a warehouse and used PVC and all kinds of different tools to create these like 5-foot tall tents. At the time, there was a homeless encampment under a bridge in Oakland, and it was sort of based right beyond this off-ramp. And cars would come off this off-ramp on a green, and they wouldn't slow down, and they were taking out homeless people all the time, and they just kept running into them. And so they were in the process of relocating everybody. The cops were running them out. They were losing their tents. And so on Valentine's Day that year, we showed up with a U-Haul, and we had stolen, I don't know how many billboards. And it was cool because we were able to pick like, you know, a Bud Light one that said something about being out in the cold, or like one about like a Chase Bank one that said something about a home, and like the outsides of the home, outside of the little tents, all had these like messages on them that were liberated. And billboard material, billboard vinyl is incredibly weatherproof. That was just, just a cool project. We put the blueprints online so people could build their own, like did the whole how-to, did a Kickstarter for, you know, us to get out and collect more. And it was, super rewarding for sure.
Yeah, and it seems like in these past couple of years, you guys have attached yourselves to certain political movements that are definitely more popular amongst the youth, especially college age. I want to talk about the post-October 7th response that you guys had. Obviously, it's gone too far.
Yeah.
And I feel like y'all have done some good work. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, it had gone too far before October 7th.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so like we were very historically and emotionally aware of that situation. And then in the wake of that, you know, you could set your watch to what the response was going to be.
Yeah.
And so I think we kind of had to jump on it. And so, yeah, it was some time after that, maybe a month or two, there was a company that put billboards up all over the country. Most people have seen them. They're pink. They've got white text. You know, and they were just these very like heavy-handed critiques, sort of like weaponizing anti-Semitism with protests and things like that. And we did the same thing. We cut them down. We just removed them. They would have been arguably the easiest billboards to alter because of their typography and the way they were set up. But it was another one of those moments where it's like, we could do something bigger and more impactful. So we removed them completely. We cut them into 8x11 pieces. We stenciled "Respect Existence" or "Expect Resistance" on them, and we mailed those out as individual works of art for $50 a piece, and raised $9,500 for the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund in a matter of 48 hours. And I don't know that there's a better definition of direct action than that.
I like this talk about direct action too, because There's this thing on the left, and I guess it's because I grew up in the inner city, but like it's the idea that the peaceful protest should be celebrated as like the prime example of like morally good resistance, and that anything that extends to specifically property damage is bad optics, and that we should be more concessionary and kind of meet in the middle with people who disagree with the cause. And you guys have never caved in the direct action message. Can you talk about why, and particularly why you guys tend to advocate, I don't want to say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you guys do like dead cops and stuff like that.
We feel that like there's all sorts of property destruction all the time. Strip mining is property destruction. Gentrification is property destruction.
Putting a billboard in the forest
is putting a billboard in the city is property destruction. You're colonizing the space in our heads.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, underneath it all, like we've never liked cops because we grew up skateboarding and had direct interactions. It's nothing personal. It's an institution. Fuck a world where we need violence to get people to do what they want. That's not even a world where we're trying to do things in a positive construction. And anybody who tells you, like, I'll put it this way. I have a general response. We read a lot of theory. We try to. We're not the world's smartest people. We don't pretend to be, but we do it because, again, it's another message to kids. You shouldn't let anybody tell you what you can't fuck with, what you can't do. It's like if our dumbasses can read it. And so one of the dudes that was huge on the left that I think is misinterpreted is Mark Hughes, you know? And he's like in the Frankfurt School, and it's like the jumble of shit that people say, but basically what he said is so simple an idiot like me can explain it. You have to start with a radical thought first, all right? To have a radical thought, you have to take all this for granted. There's no world. It's like everything we have, money, debt, these are all decisions we made. Cops, racism, race is a concept. All decisions we made as people to create these constructs. There was a period before them. Go back to that perfect period and imagine what kind of world you would build if there's nothing else in there first. And that's a thought you gotta have sometimes. People say, well, we need cops because crime. And it's like, okay, but what about before we had cops or crime? What about there was a time when we lived in caves? There was a time when we lived in villages where the way we did things are different. So I'm just trying to give you maybe the idea how to start that process.
I guess the contrast to that is people always say that human nature is fundamentally negative, and that even if you were to remove capital, you would still have evil as a concept that runs through people's brains or blood innately who would cause harm.
Evil's a construct.
You think people would be fundamentally good without capital?
I mean, I'm an anarchist. That's the central, I think people, when we hold each other accountable, bring out the best in each other.
Yeah.
And I think early society, there's books you can read. Like, go read David Graeber's Debt. It's a great book about money. It's a good starting point. But if you take the radical idea and then you take the world we live in, then you can maybe think of ways to push towards that. That's the idea, is to take, instead of starting with the negative construction of the world that we're all critical of, you start with the world we'd like to live in. And then when you look at the world we live in today, you say, how can I get closer to these ideas? Like, I saw Angela Davis when I was in my early 20s. Like, the whole idea of abolishing the police sounded crazy to me then, but it was formative to listen and then read the book and be like, oh, this makes sense.
Yeah, I remember reading that too in college and being like, holy shit, we actually might not need at least the institution of beat and street policing. I think there's still a place for like advanced investigations. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to, because she always says presence is an absence. So you could still have detectives that are solving child sex crimes, but you don't have police that are ticketing people's cars. You don't have police that are patrolling so-called high crime areas and meeting quotas to make money for the county.
And then it's a slippery slope. And then you have SWAT teams with machine guns serving warrants. And then you have a populace that feels like they need to be armed to protect themselves from that. And just step to step to step to step. If you never question the underlying premise, then you never see a world in which you just take it all for granted that life has to be miserable and that the world can't be improved.
Well, and the other thing too is there's many different forms of violence, and they don't all need to require physical contact. Standing across from someone with military-grade weaponry is enough psychological violence to inflict a response. And so what's happening right now is a perfect example. What we experienced last night is a perfect example. Trump has deployed all of these troops to Los Angeles. This police in Las Vegas are well armed. When they come out to suppress these protests without even touching anybody, it's already a form of violence. And so it's difficult to ask people who are simply standing up for their communities and neighbors. The basis of this is we want to protect our communities. the basis of this is not we want to burn them down and break shit and burn electric cars. It starts with communal respect and protection. And when the response to that is the National Guard and Marines and shooting women point blank with rubber bullets, like, how can you expect for there not to be an escalation? And that's sort of the built-in irony. And it's also worth noting that it's clearly the point of, you know, it's what Trump wished he did in 2020 with George Floyd. He's finally getting a chance to do it. I really do think it's a practice run on LA, because come Saturday, watch, like, there won't be a perfect day of protest across this country. There's going to be some flare-ups, and watch his response to it. And so it's tough to ask that of people when you talk about, the inherent evil, where it's like, look at how we classify certain groups that are trying to protect themselves. We classify them as terrorists. Look at how we classify peaceful protesters. We classify them as insurrectionists.
Yeah.
You know? And so as soon as you start to get into that little wordplay, it's over.
But then, on the left also as well, it's like, this whole idea that we are just supposed to be handed it on a platter is crazy. Like, there's been generations of activists. You know, we have family members. There have been people working for years, and changing the world is never an easy or a messy process. But I would walk across the entire country through a cloud of tear gas that big if that got us to a place where everybody, not just the people I agree with, but everybody felt invested and everybody could believe in each other. That's the end goal. All the rest of the shit, it's punditry. The end goal is like an inclusive system where everybody feels invested. It would involve all of us to change. It would involve everybody to listen a little bit. It would involve us to be much more in tune with our environment. And if you're so sure that the other guys are the only ones who are like doing anything bad, just remember, every day, just look it up. Look up the amount of different rare metals in your phone. Just look it up and look up where they mine those and what that process is. And just know, every time you get a new iPhone, like, people are dying for that. You just don't see it. And the term identity politics, anybody can co-opt that. Gun ownership, that's a form of identity politics. There's a million, anything can become a form of identity. Civil rights is about protecting anybody for being persecuted on the base of their identity. And one thing on the left is, I think we should return to a point where we demand politicians give us actual civil rights, legislation that really protects people, and not a black square on fucking Instagram so that Lululemon can sell more leggings. It's like, you know, it's like they need to actually participate in protecting people legislatively. I think that's part of the reason that the left has really struggled to find a wind or any way to do anything politically, is because they don't offer a constructive. It's like, we just did an art show out here, and that's what we tried to do. Is for once, it's like, hey, we've got a platform in a place like this. We've got a pretty big platform. Here's all these organizations that you can support locally that are doing things that's like, we're probably not going to take you up on a billboard. There's like, you know, things about that. It's like, how do I know you're not a cop? You know, it's like,
for sure.
But what we can do is point you in stuff that we think is way more gangster than what we do.
What's the most gangster shit you can think of?
What's the most gangster shit I could think of? I don't know, out here, go in the tunnels. Shine a lights out here, they'll take you down in the tunnels.
Shout out to the homie from over there, Rob. Shine a light's the real deal.
Yeah.
Those guys don't fucking play around because they've been down there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, the people who work for Shine a Light, like, it's crazy that some of the realest interviews I ever do are with like nonprofit workers, specifically in the harm reduction sphere. I want to take back nonprofit because there's an industrial complex thing there. Let me back up harm reduction employees and people who dedicate their time to that, from Frisco to here. They're just the most real ones ever.
Really quick too, I got to shout out Sidewalk Project. They're in Los Angeles. It's a group that we were involved with from the very beginning. Very dear friends of ours. Skid Row is their office, and they're there every single day. And I've never been more humbled to, you know, watch them both, you know, near and far put the work in they do in Skid Row. Anyone that's been down there knows.
So somebody watching right now could volunteer to help?
Absolutely. Volunteer. Yeah, go just hit them up. They're insanely accessible.
Every
single day of the week. They're, you know, light years ahead of any organization we know in Los Angeles.
Are they on San Pedro or?
Yeah.
So we did this speed activism day because our thing's culture jamming. So it's like speed dating, except not dating at all. It was 5 different organizations locally, and you sit down with them, and then they gave you their elevator pitch. It's real quick, and then they were tabling outside so that you could get further information. Anyways, I don't have enough time here to do them all justice. A local publication, Devoid Magazine, wrote an article. Someone went through the process, reviewed it, and it's mostly information about these 5 organizations.
All right.
So if you're in Las Vegas and watching this, you should go to Devoid Magazine. You should look that up. It should be posted soon. And you can go and get the contact info to all 5 of these organizations. We believe in all of them.
And like, we're obviously not a 501(c)(3), right? So like, the entire, basically how every single Indecline project works is us waiting to sell art, sell t-shirts, sell gloves, and then we go, oh sweet, we got $2,500 in the bank. Let's go like make Bolsonaro's head and play soccer with it in Brazil. Let's, you know, so like, you know, we are fully funded every single penny. We all have jobs. We have multiple jobs. So
dirtbags, we're like, cheap date, we make a lot out of a little.
Yeah, and we come from like guerrilla everything, art, filmmaking, you know, so, you know, you can give us $500 and we'll make something viral, but it's like, that's the basis of us. So yeah, when you get on our site, like if you want to support us, yeah, cop a t-shirt or buy, like we've got a bunch of literature now, which is like kind of the best thing you can buy because it just like gives you the whole rundown.
Is it literature like similar to how Crime Think was back in the day?
Well, we have our 20-year anthology. We've got a book that's our newest one, which is all of our Billboard Liberations with essays from Ron English, John Law from the Billboard Liberation Front, like crazy. The Yes Men wrote an essay for it, that book, and then Side Hustles, the one that we made after going to the South. So that's all the books. And then we have a book that's all of Aware's work as well. So those are just
personal essays of stories. So if you're a fan, you get some behind the scenes stories of stuff that people who were there telling stories about some of the wildest.
How long would it take Aware to do those like insane boxcars?
One night.
Yeah,
you have to do it in the night.
Yeah, there was no going back.
But I mean, how many hours is that night?
Second the sun goes down.
Right until morning.
Yeah,
I would imagine it, because some of those is just like, Jesus Christ.
Well, if you've met Aware, he's like 7 humans. You know, I mean, the guy would like.
I met him one time. He was physically large.
Yeah, so you have to realize, like, me painting an entire boxcar would take 4 nights.
Yeah,
you know, and that's like without a lunch break. But Aware, yeah, man. I mean, you get him like a overpriced fucking protein bar and like some. And the funny thing is like he didn't.
No one's stopping him walking out of Whole Foods with a pocket full of protein bars.
No, for sure.
So no, like I've spent many a night in train yards with him, and it was like amazing what he could accomplish in a single night.
Did he have a workout system at home?
He had like a rock climbing wall. He
at
was
his house.
Yeah, well, he had like a little like little man cave that he built. But he was big into jiu-jitsu.
Okay,
that was his thing.
You guys into that?
Not so much. I fuck with the hot yoga.
Okay.
I fuck like heavily with swimming and hot yoga. That's my shit. I talk so much shit on it for so long. I'm like, are they gonna make you like roar like a lion? Like, what the fuck is that? And then like most things, I got a little older, I did it, and I realized that it was like the greatest workout ever. And for me, like I boxed for a while out here, and that was like, I needed that for therapeutic reasons. I don't give a shit what I look like, but at the end of the day, it just felt nice to hit shit, you know? And now it's just, with this kind of work and this kind of world we're living in, like, having a couple hours out of the day that I can get a good workout in, but walk away from it feeling therapeutically recharged is super important.
Do you guys have a dream spot or a dream piece that you're kind of incubating in the brain right now that you're down to talk about?
I've got one I can't talk about.
Most of them we can't talk about because it's like you're putting the blueprint out and giving people a head start on like.
So you worried more so about biters than you are about law enforcement?
Like you don't want to tell someone the bank you're going to rob ahead of time.
And plus, it's like sometimes you want to do it and then see what the response is before you take credit for it. Because sometimes they drop some serious charges. So
no, that's a really good point. There's pieces that we have not put our name on, that we'll never put our name on. And it has nothing to do with cancellation. It has everything to do with like that next morning and just kind of waking up and being like, oops.
Yeah. What state do you think is like the toughest on the kind of work you guys do legally?
Las Vegas.
Yeah, Las Vegas.
Yeah, dude, what's up with the cops here?
They're fucking nuts.
Because in the tunnels, I remember they were like going in there giving people vagrancy citations.
Yeah, they're just on one. And I mean, you got to remember, we've been putting in work since 2000 out here. You
So
know?
they hate you guys
They
for real.
fucking hate us. We don't mince words when it comes to them in any form. And
you wouldn't do any kind of stencil campaign with Clark County Metro?
I mean, I think you're just asking for it. Like we've done enough. We had a when we had our art show here at Recycled Propaganda. We had a Las Vegas Metro, an actor dressed up like a cop in the LV outfit out front, getting fucked with and tagged on. It was a whole like performance art thing, and it was great. People loved
you
it.
did something similar at our show.
Exactly. So we just did the same guy, and he, he had the Reservoir Dogs setup going on.
It was the same actor.
Same dude. And he sat there for hours and just got rocked, like stickers on the face and spray painted. And like a few days later, one of our homies got a voicemail that he sent us. And he was just like, hey, just letting you know, I got like homies at Clark County that like saw your little thing with the cop. Like, you're marked, motherfucker. Yeah, they're sensitive. But it's like, listen, you chose to be a cop. You know, you could have been a lot of things.
Yeah.
I thought about that last night. We were standing downtown. I was like looking at these guys, and I don't have any sympathy, but it definitely dawned on me that it's like, man, what is it like standing here and just like feeling that like vitriol, you know, like towards you, towards the job that you've been like told to go out and do, that is like so unnecessarily intense and ridiculous. You know?
Can't tell if they're indoctrinated or just severely dissociated.
I think that the way that the police are trained now, they're trained like the military, so I think they're 100% indoctrinated.
So you don't think? I think there's PTSD involved. It's like everybody in that crowd on their side and on the other side knew that tear gas was coming out that night.
100%.
And it was just like a matter of when, and everybody's waiting, and it's like they've got to get themselves riled up enough for someone to do it. That's just classic crowd psychology. It's like they're a crowd too. It's not just that you're the crowd. There was a point where it's like there's hundreds of people yelling at you. That's maybe a little scary, but like
that's that one video. You work at Kava, nigga.
They are waiting for the opportunity. The big thing today was they're supposed to announce when they call for dispersal. They're supposed to announce audibly.
Yeah,
I thought that was standard, but they didn't do it.
No, they didn't do any of that. They
And
just started tear
like,
gassing people.
while I was laughing, watching my friend get shot with paintballs, thinking like, oh, you know, this is not a big of a deal. Like, here came the tear gas, and we all had the same thought, was like, oh, there was no heads up.
Yeah.
And there was that moment where I was kind of watching them like assemble, thinking like, oh, they might be getting ready to like call it a night, like squash the party. And yeah, they just sort of went for it. And so anyway, you wonder where all this like angst and shit comes from. And you look at the history of like how far we've come with our relationship to police. There was a time where the cop in your neighborhood, you knew his name, he knew everybody, he lived in the neighborhood. That's the big distinction, was like Officer McKinley was your neighbor. He knew all of the other neighbors, and he was like the homie.
Yeah.
And now it's this whole, like, when people talk about like an invading force and an occupying force, like, how are we supposed to feel when like at the slightest, you know, sniff of like a little bit of a protest, or like there being a 12 people coming out with some flags to run around, there's a fucking SWAT tank or you know, like military grade shit rolling down the street.
The Militarization of Police by, I think it's Robbie Balco.
That's a great book.
Yep, that's one. Get the history. They shoot an awful lot of dogs.
And Honey Boo Boo's autobiography.
Yeah.
So before we wrap this up, I got one more question for you guys, man. If Hunter Biden was here with us in the room right now, and you had one question to ask, what would it be?
I
got one. You go first.
Is yours more funny or serious?
Mine's funny.
Okay, then you go first.
If we can arrange for you to smoke crack with Bling Bling, would you?
Oh, that was the funny one I wanted to do.
I win for comment.
Okay, well, we can't ask him that.
Okay, he's got like 2 months clean, so you might want to switch that.
I have been clean and sober since June of 2019, and I have not touched a drop of alcohol or a drug, and I'm incredibly proud of that.
So that would be the first one, but and you could ask because it's funny, but like the other one is just because it's something you brought up, maybe to ask him if he could speak directly to some of the pundits, you know, just like as a human, you know, because I don't actually think he's a pundit. I think he's a guy. Like, I don't see him out doing, so just as a human, what he would say, not on a television, but just if he could sit across from one of these people who has made so much money talking about him. And I'm not passing judgment in any direction. It's not a tacit endorsement, but just, I think sometimes we forget that there's human beings, and maybe that helps personalize what he would say about the personal impact on his life beyond like stump speeches
Goddamn.
and his father's election and all this shit. It's just like as a person, you know, what we say to them.
Yeah, like a pundit on Fox who's talked about him every day for an entire election
Yeah, like
cycle.
just what if they could just no cameras, just in a room, no one's gonna hear it, it's not gonna get out. What would you say?
The only difference between crack cocaine and cocaine is sodium bicarbonate.
And are you curious to see if he'd be like
Why
full
the
of
fuck they
anger, or
gonna
would he
put
be
that
full
in?
of like, would he take the high road or low road? Is kind of what you're getting at.
Fuck him and everybody around him.
I just also want to know what he'd say. I mean, I guess how he says it would probably say a lot about him.
He
I
ain't
don't
feeling
think a
them
lot of
niggas
people
no more.
take the low
He
road
got
when you
sober
ask
and
him a
said,
thoughtful
"Fuck him."
question
Yeah.
like that. You know, I imagine if I was to imagine him doing it, I bet he'll sit there and stop and think for a second. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm wrong. And then I bet what he says afterwards will probably be useful, no matter how you feel about it.
I talked to him on Zoom yesterday and I asked him, what do you think about Tucker Carlson? And he said, he's the biggest pussy I ever met in my entire life. And he goes, when me and him were younger, we used to, we were friends in Washington. He said we used to smoke weed and stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning. And like Tucker would always just say the lamest shit. You know what I mean? He'd be like, well, if aliens weren't real, how would they not have visited us? Just like vibe killer shit. And then what he told me specifically is after Tucker slandered Hunter Biden for like 2 different election cycles, he emailed Hunter asking if he'd write his kid a recommendation letter to Brown University.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Of course he did.
So there's a lot of like, I feel like I'm really interested in that Washington social bureaucracy.
Yeah.
It's just
that's
fascinating to
wild.
me that there's like dinner parties where Tucker Carlson's smoking weed with Hunter Biden.
It's just amazing to me too, like the relationships, like you think about how we fuck with people and like when someone does you wrong, like I think like, I don't know, like people come in and out of your life for less reasons or for like some pretty insignificant things sometimes. But like when you look at Washington and you look at like the ring kissing and the ass kissing and like the things that are done to people, like people have made careers out of slandering him on like massive television corporate networks. And just like for there to even be an open line of communication is insane to me.
For sure. I mean, and just the fact that you perceive these people as being mortal enemies, but they're hanging out at dinner parties. They're part of the same sort of elite circle.
They're LARPing.
Yeah,
And
as
that's
enemies.
what we should all, that's what punditry is. They're just all LARPing. It's just, they are collecting your money to run exorbitant elections. How much do you think we spend a year on elections? Like $1 trillion?
More than is necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like, last thing, man. You do really great work.
Thank you, bro.
If anybody's already here, they already know that. But like, if you like have a relationship as seeing us as being like of the same lineage before you, I couldn't tell you just from our perspective how proud, how what you do takes the idea so much farther. You are one of the best journalists, most inventive in existence, and have done a lot to like.
Yeah, we're insanely
Shout out
proud
for
to
the
know you.
start,
And
man.
obviously, like,
Appreciate it,
we love you like a
appreciate
homie, but like, can't tell you how like fucking inspired, you know, like we are constantly to see your work, man.
Appreciate that, my dogs.
Absolutely.
And it means a lot as a lifelong fan to get the opportunity to get the first real candid sit down that I've seen with you guys. I'm sure there's been others, but this feels like special to me because we've talked for a while, but I'm learning shit about you guys through this interview that I didn't even know.
Yeah.
So shout out to Indecline, Channel 5, Hunter Biden, Bling Bling, crack session when?
Maybe ask him in his heyday if he could have picked one celebrity to smoke crack with, if it would have been Bling
Don't
Bling.
ask him about that.
Well, I'm just going to ask him if he knows who Bling Bling is.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a nice
Hunter
subtle.
told me in our primary Zoom consultation he was doing crack every 15 minutes for 2 years.
Oh my God.
You might know. I mean, Bling Bling's
yeah.
like the Don Corleone of the crack game.
And you know what? Last thing I'm going to say is, as Lil Boosie, the rapper, said, we kind of wish we had more crackheads now. I mean, if you look at how long Bling Bling has lived in active addiction, with fentanyl, impossible.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it is a wild one.
You know? I mean, he's probably going to live into his 70s and 80s.
Gwyneth Paltrow, if you're watching, that's the new move right there.
Yeah, get rid of the vagina eggs.
Exactly. Appreciate you guys, man.
Channel 5 live worldwide, Hollywood and Vine.
Fuck the authority, Channel 5 News.
Channel 55. We don't fuck with custers. And 5 is the best number.
Sheesh. Hey, I'll be back in a minute, y'all. I got another live I'm about to start.